Welcome to the WPAOG podcast. On this episode, Colonel Retired Jim Lynch, MD, and West Point class of 1989, is a physician and veteran, expert in the use of Stellate Ganglion Block, a revolutionary treatment for PTSD and other anxiety conditions. After 31 years in Army medicine, he now leads a private practice helping veterans, first responders, and trauma survivors finding lasting relief. Please enjoy this episode with our host, Jamie Enos.
Today we're talking about something really exciting and a little unexpected, stellate ganglion blocks. For short, it's SGB. And now if you've never heard of a stellate ganglion block, it's been around for a while, but this approach could change the way we care for veterans and service members living with PTSD and anxiety. And I am thrilled to have Dr. James Lynch, class of 89, on with us today. We are going to explore how SGB blocks work, why the environment of care matters, and what this could mean for making treatment more accessible to the people who need it most, our veterans and our grads. So let's dive right in. Dr. Lynch, thanks so much for being here. We've made progress talking about mental health, but there is still a lot of hesitation, especially in high performance or military cultures. What do you think it will take to make mental health care feel like as normal as even physical fitness?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on, Jamie. This is a topic that some people may be very familiar with, or some people may have never heard of SGB or stellate ganglion block. The interesting thing about it is it has really grown. It's a procedure for PTSD, and it's really grown out of the military community, specifically the special operations community where I served. I'm class of 89. I served for 31 years after graduation, retired a few years ago. I spent about 20 years as a physician in special operations. And in that community, for those of you who have served or have been around the SOF community, there's a huge emphasis on high performance, both physical, mental, and cognitive. And after about almost 20 years of back-to-back deployments and the strains and stressors that was having on people, we got a little creative looking for, hey, what else can we do to help folks who are struggling with the injuries from post-traumatic stress, but are still in the fight and not ready to take a knee and things like that. So the question he asked right away about stigma, essentially, I saw an amazing shift in the SOF community, specifically in the tier 1 unit that I served at in Fort Bragg, where some senior leaders, senior NCOs and senior officers stepped forward and said, hey, I'm taking care of my mental health because I'm looking at it the same way as I look at my body and what I do with the strength coach in the gym and my physical therapist and my cognitive performance coach. And it's just about getting right. So it actually shifted quite a bit in the last 10 years of my career. Not that it's perfect for sure, but it certainly can shift and certainly can help reduce stigma of mental health and have some people step forward, ask for help. The other thing is knowing that there's something that actually works. And that's really where stellate ganglion block comes in my opinion.
That is great to hear. Of course, we love to hear that. So for folks that haven't heard of this before, this procedure, what is it? What is an SGB and how is it performed? What do you do? What would someone expect if they were getting this?
Yeah. So I should preface this by saying it sounds weird. It absolutely sounds like a strange concept. It did to me. I first heard about this back in about 2010, and I actually just thought it was weird and kind of stopped listening. So this would be my ploy that if you feel that way, you're not alone. It's a ultrasound guided injection in the side of the neck, which is performed to numb a nerve that controls your fight or flight system. The procedure has actually been around for 100 years. This is not something I invented. It's not something that is new and we're just trying it out or anything like that. There are certainly many emerging treatments for PTSD and anxiety, medications and other things. This is not one of them. Stellate ganglion block was performed in the 1920s by touching a bone in the side of the neck and injecting numbing medicine to treat pain syndromes, primarily things along the head and neck. It has 100 years worth of safety data. It's a really safe, straightforward procedure. It takes technical skills to do it safely and properly, of course. And I do the procedure under ultrasound guidance, which is what my training is in. But all it is, in very simple terms, is numbing the nerve that connects your brain and your body with the sympathetic nervous system fibers that flow between the two, which is a nerve called the cervical sympathetic trunk. It's kind of the opposite of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve I mentioned because it has gotten a lot of lay attention. A lot of people are familiar with vagus nerve and the rest and digest or parasympathetic nervous system. This is the opposite. So it's just like brake pedal, gas pedal. And the brake pedal that slows things down is the vagus nerve, but it has a correlate. It's like the yin and yang. And the opposite, which is like your gas pedal, your accelerator, is called the cervical sympathetic trunk, and it controls your sympathetic nervous system or your fight or flight system. So in short, the procedure is simply numbing the nerve for a brief period of time, usually 6 to 8 hours is how long that lasts. And what numbing the nerve does is it allows the sympathetic nervous system to reboot, air quotes, reboot, or reset, or go to sleep and wake up in a less excited state.
Okay. Your background, like you mentioned, soft community, you yourself had a high tempo environment that you were in practicing family medicine, sports medicine, but treating soldiers yourself as a soldier. So how did you get into this? How did you find out about this? Were you using it for sports medicine to relieve pain in the limbs and in the upper body, or how did you find out about it and then transition into that?
Yeah, great. It's a great question because, so first of all, my background, I'm a family medicine physician by training. I subspecialize in sports medicine, and that's really what I did for 15 years in the military in the soft community. And it was primarily ultrasound guided diagnosis of musculoskeletal and neurologic injuries, and then a lot of ultrasound guided injections. So that's kind of my specialty, which is like steering a needle under an ultrasound probe. That is kind of the backdrop, but most people who perform this procedure are not ultrasound trained in sports medicine. It can be a procedure where people that are pain management, anesthesia providers learn this in their fellowship. Many of them learn how to do the procedure under fluoroscopy, which is a different modality. It's like live X-ray. But that was kind of the weird way that when this crossed my path that I became very interested in it because I had the skill set to actually do it when trained properly. And the long, I hate to say long story short, because it's not short even, but the procedure was actually discovered by accident, like a lot of things in medicine. In 1990, somebody published an article where a young woman was shot at point blank range, civilian, in New York City, and had terrible injury to her shoulder from gunshot wound and bad PTSD to the point she couldn't engage in therapy. She couldn't leave her apartment, that kind of thing. In the process of treating her shoulder injury, they were treating her pain, the doctors, with a procedure called Stellate Ganglion Block, which has been around for a long time to treat what we call sympathetically mediated pain. So the surprise was her PTSD got better, like dramatically better. And somebody wrote up a nice case report, published in the literature in 1990, and it just kind of sat there. Nobody really picked up on it. Nobody really did anything with it. That's the first description of Stellate Ganglion Block being used for PTSD. So fast forward several years later, and while in the soft community, I had a colleague working at a different tier 1 unit who was exploring ways to help take care of his guys and gals in the unit, and had found out this procedure, Stellate Ganglion Block, was being performed by a doctor in Chicago, and started inquiring about it, tried, in fact, got a couple of Army docs to do the procedure on a few of his guys. Then he got trained to do the procedure as well and taught me how to do the procedure. This is around 2011, kind of happened quickly. What got my attention, honestly, was a couple of my soldiers at my unit at Bragg had it done elsewhere, came and grabbed me and said, "Doc, you got to pay attention. This thing sounds weird, but it works." So that really what piqued my interest, and said, okay, well, let me dig into this. So I figured out how to get trained and credentialed to the pain department at Womack Army Medical Center. And then back really just started doing the procedure once I was fully credentialed and all. And then over the course of the last 15 years, it's turned out to be kind of my life's work. And I've accidentally become one of the world experts in this thing, which was not what I set out to do, but it's my passion because it's an amazingly safe and successful procedure for many, many people's PTSD and anxiety symptoms.
Yeah. And I'd like to note that the saying of your clinic is calm the body, calm the mind. Do you want to explain why you chose that or why you guys reference that?
Yeah, it was one of those things when having a conversation, it just kind of came out and it stuck. It was like a little light bulb, like, hey, that's actually interesting. So maybe the best way to describe it is after the procedure, immediately after the procedure, which by the way is performed in an outpatient setting, takes about 10 minutes to do. And I'm slow. I'm kind of a paranoid guy. So I really am. I don't even mind saying it. I just,
I don't know if people
very,
would complain about that, right? I mean, you are talking about neck and people might be
yeah.
nervous if you were like, oh, I'm really good at this.
I have had a couple of people say, hey, doc, I don't think you should tell your patients you're paranoid. I don't care, actually. I'm very, very good at the procedure. I've been doing it thousands of people for 15 years, but
Sure.
I don't rush. I just like to take my time, avoid complacency, and just walk my way through it. And even then, it takes me like 8 minutes to do the procedure, which is an injection in the side, 2 injections in the side of the neck, one at the 6th cervical vertebrae level, and then we're right above it at the C4 or 4th level. So after the procedure, I sit in the room with people, and it's not a very painful thing. It feels a little bit like a couple of flu shots. People are wide awake for the procedure. And when recovering, which just means relaxing in the room afterwards, many people feel an immediate calming of their mind, meaning their thoughts calming down and their bodies calming down. Many people's muscle tone relaxes. A lot of people actually get emotional and cry. And many times they don't even know why they're crying. There's a release that happens when the sympathetic nervous system goes to sleep. And really the reason we say that is, in my experience, many people attribute their PTS or anxiety symptoms to something they feel in their body or something we call the somatic physical symptoms, or they'll associate their anxiety with the anxious thoughts. And what it turns out is they're actually connected at the neck. And there's this network of nerves within the brain, or network of areas within the brain, called the central autonomic network. And they're connected to the network of nerves in the body, which is this, if you picture like a tree or a weed with these ridiculous root networks that just go on forever. That's a little bit what the sympathetic nervous system looks like in the body. It's quite literally nerves that travel along all the other nerves and all the blood vessels that go down to every hair follicle, every sweat gland, every muscle in your body. And that giant nerve network that carries sympathetic nervous system fibers or fight or flight fibers has to communicate with your brain, and they have to traverse the area in your neck. So the way we were designed is they just converge into this anatomic funnel, which is like a cable that connects the two. And if you block the nerve, you're essentially affecting both the brain and the body. So that's the long story of really where calm the body, calm the mind comes from. And a lot of my patients, it resonates with them. They say, yeah, it's exactly how I feel after this procedure.
So Cadet Lynch, did you think you'd be sitting here today as like this world-renowned doctor in any field, let alone this highly specialized field that soldiers, your peers, would be suffering from?
No, that's probably one of those where I don't think anybody, well, whatever, maybe some people know that. I didn't even know I wanted to go into medicine, although I was kind of intrigued. And that's kind of a comical story that I won't go into. But while as a cadet,
Oh, wait, that's the one we want, though.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll say some. I'll show my dumb side here for a second. So I was a psychology major, behavioral sciences, and leadership major at West Point, and I liked psychology. It was actually interesting, and this is kind of this really weird life. Life has a sense of humor that now I find myself back in the mental health world. But I went into West Point and I majored in psychology. I thought it was very interesting and had planned on being a combat arms officer all along. Just kind of like, I was one of those guys who just like, that was what we were going to do. And then my junior year, I had thought about medical school. And it was one of those like fleeting things. It's not like I have anybody in my family in medicine. It was just kind of, that sounds like that would be kind of cool. Well, of course, I'm not a pre-med or a life sciences major, so I thought like somehow I could just study myself for the MCAT and take it, which was thank you for laughing. It was a stupid idea. I borrowed my buddy's organic chemistry book thinking I could learn it. Yeah, so total fail. But what it did by accident was it planted a seed in my head about, okay, that is something I might be interested down the line. That's funny. I think I'm actually blushing thinking about that now. It's kind of embarrassing. What I did though was
fortitude. We got it.
I was class of 89. And what happened in class of 88, The year before, they offered Medical Service Corps as a branch, which was not, it was quite literally a branch I'd never heard of before. I had no idea what it was. And I met a doctor who had his uniform hanging out, and it had a Ranger tab on it, the silver caduceus thing, an 82nd Airborne combat patch. I was like, what is that branch? He explained this thing called Medical Service Corps, and he was a platoon leader in the 82nd and did some other cool jobs, was a jump master. It kind of intrigued me. I didn't even know that was an option. So that's actually what I selected. I branched Medical Service Corps out of West Point. And I found myself in the 82nd Airborne as a med platoon leader in 2nd 325 on my way to Ranger School, Panama, and the first Gulf War right after the first week of graduation. But that little voice was still in the back of my head. And really, I spent 10 years as an MSC officer, Medical Service Corps officer, doing kind of typical jobs. I never worked in a hospital. I always worked in a field unit. So I went through platoon leader, XO. I was an aide for a year, company commander. And then I taught the basic course for 3 years. And while doing that, I went to night school to get my pre-med prerequisites. Then I went to medical school on an Army scholarship, and I went to Dartmouth for 2 years. Then I took a year off, stayed at Dartmouth, got a master's degree, and then I transferred to Brown and graduated from Brown, went right back in the Army. So all of that, thanks to the Army's paying for it. And I spent all my time as a physician in the special operations community. So the question, like, did I ever think I'd be doing this? Well, I didn't even think I'd be working in the mental health area, believe it or not. But it's funny how you kind of find your passion. And as a sports med doc, I loved taking care of people with injuries that are generally healthy, athletic folks that hurt their knee playing pickleball or hurt their shoulder playing whatever, and they just need help getting back on the field. And that's what I've done the most of my career. I worked as an Olympic team physician for 10 years with the U.S. swimming team, got to go to 2 Olympics, had a great time doing all that. And the thing that I find the most exciting is actually treating people who are struggling with mental health and helping them with the heavy load that they're carrying that most people can't really see. Yeah. That was a long answer. So I hope that's okay.
No, I think it was perfect. It was perfect. So for those listening that might be recovering from a concussion or struggling with anxiety or PTSD, what steps do you suggest they take, or what kind of conversations should they be having with their healthcare providers to support their healing?
So I think if for anybody that's listening right now, and there are people out here, I'm sure, who are listening, who have an official diagnosis of PTSD or anxiety, general anxiety disorder, or panic disorder, or who have had a traumatic brain injury, a concussion. There are probably people out there who have not had a physician make the official diagnosis of any of those things, but who may be carrying around symptoms of them. I'd say first and foremost, if we just focused on PTSD, there are treatments for PTSD, and frankly, they're not awesome. They're not. It's a very challenging condition to treat. And there are people who sometimes won't even step forward to ask for help because they know that. And they think they're somehow condemned to suffer this, carrying this weight around. The other thing in the veteran community, so again, based on the audience and who we're speaking with, the percentages, the numbers of people in the United States, or the percentage of people in the United States who have PTSD that are military is about a third. 2/3 of people suffering from PTSD in the United States are civilians, no military background whatsoever. And then if you look at the military section, a giant number are not combat related. And that always surprises people. And I think there are people who have PTSD that is not combat related within the military community who somehow feel weird about that. And to talk about an elephant in the room, sexual trauma is a big deal. And there are a lot of people in the military who have been injured by sexual trauma in the military and have bad PTSD. And it's something that people look at and they say, oh, that's a veteran issue. And somehow there's this leap like everybody has combat related PTSD. It's just not true. And there's a bunch of people in the military who had pre-existing trauma from their childhood or from their upbringing, and that happened to precede their time in the military. So I think it's important to say, and I really feel strongly about saying that in this forum, because there are a lot of people who are exposed to traumas that aren't combat related, but because they're a veteran, they feel funny about stepping forward to ask for help. So, number two, I think it's important to know that there are treatments that are really, really helpful for PTSD and anxiety that are not mainstream yet. And there are some that are emerging, and many people are very interested in watching the emerging science come out on things like psychedelics for PTSD. There's studies going on. There are new and emerging medications and treatment therapies all the time. Some are covered by insurance, some are not. Some you have to go somewhere far away to do it, some you don't. The Stellate Ganglion Block is not one of those new, somebody just discovered it and we don't know what it's going to do to your brain in 10 years things. Like, we have 100 years worth of safety data on it, and it's been studied pretty rigorously in the medical literature for the past 15 years. Soon, a lot of that research I've actually published, I've been an author on it, and we have another study coming out soon that we did in the veteran community. So the evidence continues to mount on it, but Stellate Ganglion Block is not covered by insurances at this point. The effect is pretty amazing. So if you look at all of the data in the literature that shows Stellate Ganglion Block's effect on PTSD symptoms is to reduce symptoms by about 50%. And that's usually like within a week, within a few days. There's really nothing else that touches that magnitude of effect within the PTSD treatment regimen. And there's all the side effects that are associated with medications. Not that they're not a great idea. So I don't want to sound like a medication or pharmaceutical basher in any way. I'm not saying that. There's some fantastic trauma-focused therapies that are really helpful. But for some people, there's just this biologic glitch where your fight or flight system will not shut down the way it's supposed to. And it's essentially like a short circuit in the neurologic system. And in my experience, many of my patients who come here, no one's explained this to them. Like nobody has explained to them how the fight or flight system is wired, how it's regulated by the amygdala in the brain, which is the fire alarm, and how it's a positive feedback loop, and it can become stuck in an elevated position. And despite doing all the best things that you're trying to do, like meditation or yoga and see your therapist or take the right medication, some people just can't break that hyper elevated sympathetic tone, which manifests as things like anger and irritability or poor sleep or poor concentration. And you feel like, I'm just stuck like this. Many people sense there's something wrong inside. And it turns out that this procedure, Stellate Ganglion Block, does something that no other procedure does. It just goes directly behind the autonomic nervous system veil to the anatomic structure that controls the sympathetic nervous system, puts it to sleep for 8 hours, and it wakes back up again. And that stupid, very simple thing can be the thing that breaks that circuit for 85 to 90% of people.
It's incredible when you think about it. It's just, I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand it and why and how it works. I admit, but to trust the science because it is there, and the studies are there, and the patients are there that are swearing by it. So, and exactly, I mean, is that why you think it's resonating so strongly? Is it just patient success? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think that's probably worth reiterating that too. So within the Department of Defense on active duty, there are hospitals performing Stellate Ganglion Block. So in fact, if you're on active duty right now, or you're listening and you have a family member on active duty and they have bad PTSD or anxiety, there's a handful, I'll say that, of DoD military treatment facilities where they've been performing Stellate Ganglion Block for 15 years. I did it when I was stationed at South Africa and Germany. I'd drive up to Landstuhls, perform there, out at Tripler in Hawaii, at Womack, at Fort Bragg. So there are facilities that have been doing it for a long time. Within the veterans community, within the VA facilities, same thing. There's a handful of facilities that offer Stellate Ganglion Block. So the opportunity is there. The accessibility is not awesome because it hasn't been like widespread adopted across all VA hospitals. What it's been left up to the individual hospital chiefs whether or not to implement. And if they have someone who's trained to do it and their psychiatry department is on board, they can implement that. So that's a moving target. That's happening while we speak. but it's happening very, very slowly. And things move at a glacial pace, as many people know, within the Department of Veterans Affairs healthcare system. So what in the civilian world, there's no insurance that typically covers this, although sometimes people are occasionally lucky to get reimbursement to cover the procedure. Otherwise, you have to pay out of pocket for it. And that's not something a lot of people really want to do. Although for my clinic here, I'm in Maryland. Actually, the funny thing is I live in Annapolis, 1 block away from the Naval Academy. My clinic is in Gambrels, which is kind of near Fort Meade, BWI Airport, that area. But I'm located here on the East Coast. I have patients that have flown here from 47 different states and 12 different countries who come see me in this clinic to have this procedure done. They pay out of pocket, they pay for travel, they come and have the procedure done because they have done their own research, or their doctors have done the research and literature, and they know that it's a really effective thing. That's not for everyone to do. Many people don't have the means to do that, or the time, or the resources, or whatever. But I think the evidence just continues to mount. So there's going to be a point that things tip, and the insurance companies will pick it up. In the meantime, for our veteran communities, what we've done is partnered up with a bunch of benevolent agencies, and we try to find sponsorship for people who can't afford to pay for the price of the procedure. For me, at this location, I charge $1,000 for a Stellate Ganglion Block. So it's just a flat $1,000 out of pocket, which is a lot of money for a procedure. And then if we do the procedure on both sides of the neck, which I may explain if we have time, I charge $1,600, $1,600 for the procedure. I'm saying that, and I've done more than most people in the world. I'm very, very good at it. And those are fairly reasonable prices. About many other places that offer this charge about twice that, over $3,000 for the procedure. And they do it in an operating room with anesthesia, and they make a slightly different way of doing it. But $1,600 is a lot of money for people to pay out of pocket. So we're always looking for someone who's willing to sponsor someone, whether it's a veteran, a first responder, a firefighter. Our biggest, and the thing a couple of things I'm very proud about, but one is we have had an awesome grant for sexual assault survivors that we created called the Offering Hope Grant. There are a lot of people who are willing to step up and help support veterans. I'm a veteran, so I love it. I appreciate that. Both of our daughters are in the military, whatever. I spent a career in the military, so I'm a big veteran supporter. That part's easy. And we have some first responder supporters, and that's gaining traction. There are a lot of people that want to help firefighters and law enforcement officers, but it's very hard to find someone to help sponsor a sexual assault survivor. And we had a great grant that we burned through really quickly because there's no shortage of help required out there. So we have depleted the funds in the Offering Hope Grant, but we're hoping to restart that with some other benevolent investor who wants to support such a cause.
Yeah. And you've taken this overseas too, right? Like you have explored other uses for this in other populations.
Yeah, this was, so I gave up my sports med practice a bit ago, and the practice that I have now is my wife and I own it. We are a mom and pop shop, which is fun to say. We're a veteran-owned small business. And one of the reasons that we did that was I did not like the system that our healthcare operates in is challenging. And there are people operating within it that I felt in my prior civilian job after I left the military that I didn't share the same values and align with perfectly. So I quit. And my wife's idea was, hey, we should start our own business, which sounds like a terrible idea to me. I'm like 58 years old. Like, what am I doing? And I had no desire ever to own a private practice at all. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I just like take care of people. Turns out, if you want to take care of people and you want to do it really well, and you want to treat people the way you want to be treated, sometimes you got to own your own practice and make your own rules and have all the control to make things awesome. So we did that, and our clinic's been open for a year now. We opened up last October, and in the past year, I've gone to full-time this. So I do literally one procedure. I'm about as niched down as you can get for a family sports med doc, and this is all I do. But one of the other reasons we wanted to have our own business or our own clinic to have the flexibility to do things pro bono where they really need to be done. So we went to Ukraine, and we're going back. And we're going back again after that, probably. We've been watching that like many other Americans on the sideline on the news now for several years, and it's been tugging at my heart, which I'm sure it is for many other people listening. And it hit me about 2 years ago. I was watching some videos of some drone footage, and I thought, yeah, I could help. Like, I actually have something in my skill set where I could help, and I should. So we teamed up with a group called Task Force Antal, which was founded by one of the special operators in my former unit at Fort Bragg. And they've been a benevolent humanitarian organization in and out of Ukraine for multiple years. So I approached them and said, hey, I would like to bring Stellate Ganglion Block to Ukraine, bring ultrasound guided expertise, train Ukrainian physicians to do the procedure, and treat as many people as I can. And they said, game on, let's go, let's figure it out. And we had our first trip in September, and my wife Jody and I teamed up with a team from Task Force Antal and went to a PTSD treatment center in Kyiv. It happened to be very chippy while we were there, and we got air attacks every night while we were there, and even right in the middle of a procedure one day while we were doing the procedure. But we were able to treat over 50 Ukrainians and begin the training process for some Ukrainian physicians. So that's an ongoing effort, and that's something that we just feel strongly about. I'm not of Ukrainian descent or have any particular connection to Ukraine other than just watching like a lot of other Americans and wishing I could do something. So our plan is to go back a couple of times a year and focus on training Ukrainian physicians and treating as many Ukrainians, military and civilian, men, women, and children as possible. It's kind of a run through humanitarian group, again, called Task Force Antal. We had to raise money to do this last group, to buy an ultrasound and some other things. So this will be an ongoing effort to raise funds to continue to do this mission. But we're kind of all in at this point. I feel like Jody and I made up our mind, like we're not stopping until Ukraine has the capability of providing this treatment, because they had a whole generation lying ahead of them of significant PTSD issues among men, women, and children.
Well, that selfless service, it runs deep in West Point grads, and it's great to hear that story from you as well. Dr. James Lynch, thank you so much for sharing your insight, your knowledge, your passion, and your story with us today on WPAOG podcast. I know I've learned so much. I think our audience is going to be really energized from this knowledge and this procedure. And I don't think it's really out there. So again, thanks for coming on and educating everybody about it.
Yeah, well, appreciate you having me on. I think we scratched the surface. So if anybody's interested in learning more about this is funny to say for an old dude, but I have a YouTube channel. But the website is really built to be an educational platform. So it's just my name. It's if you happen to be driving right now, it's very easy to remember. It's just drjameslynch.com. It's just drjameslynch.com. And on that is a link to everything from our YouTube channel and all the published evidence on this and a bunch of frequently asked questions. So I think if I scratch the surface and you're interested in digging in, you can find more there. I'm happy to help anybody from anywhere at any time. So the phone number's on the website, and all you got to do is call. We are a mom and pop shop. So pretty simple. You probably get my wife, Jody, answering the phone. I really appreciate you having me on, and a shout out to my buddies from D3, class of 89. And then I would be remiss not to say hi to my buddies from formerly called 150s, lightweight, now sprint football, especially the Dirt Pigs. So I hear the legend is carried on, and I have my own Dirt Pig t-shirt here now. So anyway, thanks a lot for having me on. And I hope someone listening reaches out to connect. I'd love to help.
Oh, it's very kind of you. To our listeners, if you or someone you love is struggling with PTSD, please remember you're not alone, and resources are out there. We will include links in the show notes so that you can learn more about Dr. James Lynch, SGBs, our veteran services team here at AOG, and other forms of support. If you have an emergency, please dial 911. But if you're just looking to talk to someone, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7, 365 by calling or texting 988. Thanks for listening today.
Thank you for listening to the WPAOG Broadcast Network. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and subscribe to automatically get updates on a new episode. Thank you for listening. This episode is meant for entertainment purposes only and not in any way official medical advice. Please consult your doctor or other medical professionals for your own personal well-being.